Good to be back here in the house of the Lord, and like Randy said, without rain. Couldn't even get to Walmart the other day. The streets were flooded. So that's terrible. Can't get to Walmart. I lived in Aruba for 7 months a few years ago, and while Aruba was very beautiful and lovely, and all the wonderful relaxation things and the beaches and everything else, they didn't have a Walmart, so we had to come back to the States. So anyway, well, we are continuing our series on the temperaments today, and so far some of you have been able to identify yourselves in some of these, and a lot of you say, well, a lot of that applies to me, but some of it don't, and we're going to clarify that starting next week. But we've got to go through the phlegmatics today, and it's a very different temperament than some of the others that we've talked about. The phlegmatic temperament, let's go to slide 2 here. Yeah, right there. The phlegmatic temperament is naturally service-oriented with a core drive to avoid conflict. Above all else, they want to avoid conflict. They are passive in both positive and negative environments, and they influence their environment by cooperating with others to carry out tasks. They're typically not highly ambitious and tend to lack a sense of urgency, both due to their passive nature. So they don't get in a hurry to do anything. And if you see the person merging onto the highway and they're the one that stops waiting for traffic, that's a phlegmatic right there. They don't know how to merge into traffic. Typically, they're introverted. They're calm. They're unemotional. It's not that they're unemotional. It's just that they never allow their emotions to show. You can give them $1 million, and they will just say thank you and walk away. They may be jumping up and down on the inside, but you will never see it on the outside of them. They just don't show their emotion. They have a very dry sense of humor. They can tell a joke, never crack a smile, and everybody else be rolling, and they're just a very dry sense of humor. They're easygoing, they're patient, and agreeable. They're very slow to warm up. The passion doesn't happen right overnight. I mean, it takes a while to warm them up. You got to put them on slow heat and, simmer for a while before they get warmed up. The reason the phlegmatic is accommodating is that they fear conflict. This is their greatest fear in life. They appear never to get ruffled. They never explode into anger or laughter. They keep their emotions under control. And the one thing about them, they are very consistent in this all the time. They are the most consistent of the 4 temperaments. They're the easiest people to get along with, as long as you don't try to alter their routine. Okay, they are very, very adverse to change. They want the same thing for breakfast every day. They want to do the same task every day. They want to go through the day without changing their routine. They prefer a private, low-key lifestyle centered around home and family. They're not the social butterflies. They don't want to run out and go to parties every weekend. They tend to be the spectators in life. But beneath the cool, reserved reticent, timid, phlegmatic is a very capable combination of abilities, and we're going to talk about those in just a minute. Let's go to slide 3. Talk about the scriptures. It says Romans 12:18, if it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. That is the motto of the phlegmatic. Okay? Go to slide, and Proverbs, a soft answer turneth away wrath, but a grievous word stir up anger. This is the phlegmatic. There's another scripture that comes to mind. The nice thing about phlegmatics, you can all say that you're children of God, because Jesus said on the mount, he said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. So you've got one thing going for you right off the bat that's better than most. All right, let's go to slide 5, and we're going to talk about the positive phlegmatic personality traits and the characteristics. Number 1, they love to follow rules and enforce the rules. Now, I've only taken a few of these to highlight today because it would take me a week to go through all of them. But they are the rule followers. They embrace rules. Pastors love phlegmatics because they just want to be told what to do. You give them the 10 commandments, and they're going to follow the 10 commandments. And there are certain denominations that just love that kind of a saint because they'll do everything they're told to do. They hate breaking any rule. It makes them uncomfortable to even think that they might have broken a rule. They become bothered by negative perception of a failure, and that's breaking a rule to them is a failure, and they have failed to meet specific expectations, so they feel very bad about it. To avoid this issue, many will question repeatedly if the best possible decisions are being made. Despite the need to follow the rules, they'll find they are very creative, and they will take your work to the next level. All right, number 2, they receive joy by giving it to other people. They receive joy by giving joy to other people. They, too, like the melancholy, are very service-oriented. They like to put other people first. The melancholy will do it sacrificially. The phlegmatic will do it simply to try to make you feel good. The melancholy will go over and beyond and exhaust themselves. The phlegmatic will put themselves out a little bit because they still have a little bit of a selfish, stingy nature, so they don't give it all to service like the melancholy will. They derive joy from being able to provide happiness for others, even though the joy that they receive never shows on their face. Okay? So, for some, this makes it seem like they lack confidence because they don't show the emotion. A phlegmatic person wants, above everything else, a peaceful world. And they are great in conflict resolution. If you got two parties that are opposing one another and you want to bring them together, you put a phlegmatic in there and they can help the parties come to an agreement and understanding. They will do whatever it takes to make peace happen, assuming that they are able to work within a set of rules. Choices are made based on degrees of happiness, even if these actions come at a personal cost. Number 3, they have high levels of emotional intelligence. While they may never show their emotions, those with a phlegmatic personality are always tuned into their emotions. They know what they're feeling inside. They also are very intuitive, and they can sense and feel the thoughts and the feelings of others that are around them. It's very much like the melancholy does. They're able to feel the mood and sense the feelings of others that are around them. And this will help them to, as they're being very intuitive, this will help them do whatever they can to help bring that person to some peace if they're troubled at the time. They are very sensitive. They do not like to have their feelings hurt. And they wear their feelings on their sleeves. So you got to be careful not to brush up against them. They hate to see other people have their feelings hurt. To stop this from happening, many phlegmatics seek to bear the burdens of others so the rest of the world can focus on positive emotions. The next positive thing, they take the blame themselves so that others will not have to suffer the consequences. They don't want that person they want peace, and rather than have conflict, they will take the blame upon themselves so that they don't have to impose any kind of harsh conflict on somebody else because they made a mistake. They're just simply trying to make things easier for everybody involved, willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of the rest of the group. Now, I will tell you that in our family growing up, there were no phlegmatics because we were quick to point the finger at somebody else rather than take the blame upon themselves because, we feared the belt. So they're very honest. They're honest with their emotions, but because they avoid, they're very honest in all areas of their life, but in order to cause conflict, if you want to know how you look in a certain garment, you want a phlegmatic husband or wife, because then you can go to them and say, how do I look in this dress? Being very honest, but wanting to avoid conflict, they'll say, that color looks good on you. So they don't want to tell you that the dress doesn't hang right or fit right or whatever. They'll compliment something else to avoid the conflict. If they cannot keep their word for any reason, they will go above and beyond to ensure that things are made right. This is one of the rule-breaking things about them. They feel like if they've broken a promise, they've broken a rule. And so breaking a promise bothers them immensely because they see it as violating society's rules. And they are so rule-oriented. They love to have the rules set before them. Phlegmatics like to spend time by themselves. They're not going to go out looking for the party. They want to stay at home with a movie and with their family rather than go out, or their cat if they're elderly and they want to stay home with their cat. They'll have fun with a close circle of friends, but that is the extent of their social life. They prefer to play board games and stay in familiar territory. They're very warm and cooperative people. If you want somebody to help out at a car wash, at a bake sale, at a school event, serve on the PTA, then you want a phlegmatic to help you out. They're cooperative and willing to help whenever they can. Even if they cannot help, they can refer you to someone who might be willing to get involved with what you need to be done. Now, let me share the difference between a phlegmatic here and a choleric, for instance. A phlegmatic will see an injustice being done in society, and they will point out and say, somebody needs to do something about that. The choleric says, I need to do something about that. Okay? One of them wants to get involved. The other just wants to point out the injustices and hope that somebody else gets involved and takes care of the situation. They are They take pride in knowing that their experiences help others and to find some type of success in life. They are very creative and imaginative. If you get stuck on a project, call a phlegmatic personality. They see things in a different light because of their rule-following personality. If you have something that needs to be put together and put back together, call a phlegmatic, because rules say that this piece goes here and this piece goes here and this piece goes, and when they get done, there's no extra nuts and bolts and stuff left over because they missed something, because they follow the rules. They're the ones that all the printed instructions that are included in the things that you get from IKEA, those are the people that the rules are printed for. Nobody else reads them but the phlegmatic will, and they'll follow them to a T. They see that the pieces fit together to create solutions because of their preference for rules and structure. They like routine. They resist change. They avoid conflict. Other positive phlegmatic temperament traits include being practical. They're very concrete. They have a firm foundation because of their rule-following tendencies, and they are very traditional thinkers. They're patient. They're persistent and consistent in whatever they undertake, and they are calm and well-balanced. Not one side of a phlegmatic's personality is overactive. They are just very even in everything they do in life. All right, let's go to 6, number 6 here. All right, so here's their weaknesses. And first of all, I want to point to the fact that phlegmatics are very prone to depression. Symptoms including feelings of general unexplained sadness, their withdrawal from society, excessive sleep, going to bed for 2 or 3 days at a time, are very prevalent in the phlegmatic temperaments. Because of their passive nature, the phlegmatic tends to procrastinate easily. We talked about the sanguine going out to mow the yard, lining up all his tools, and then walking down the street and visiting with his neighbor for several hours. Coming home, lawn's still undone, he tells the kids to put the tools away. We could look at the phlegmatic. They are lazy. They don't want to do the lawn. They hate doing the lawn. But by not doing the lawn, that will offend the homeowners association, and so they tend to have the nicest lawn in the subdivision because they don't want to offend anybody by not doing the lawn. Strange people, these phlegmatics. They simply do that to avoid the conflict and please everybody. Phlegmatics tend to have a lot of fear, self-doubt, and overall insecurity. If something goes wrong, the first thing they start looking back is, which rule did I break? What did I do wrong here? Why didn't I follow the instructions here? And so on and so forth. They can be grudge holders. They will hang on to a grudge. They do not forget when somebody does something wrong to them. They tend to be selfish. They can be stingy. They can be stubborn. They're very self-protective. They're indecisive and lazy. And conflict, as I said before, and I'll say it all over again, conflict is the core fear of the phlegmatic. When we start looking at biblical examples of phlegmatics. Can anybody think of one right off the bat? Saul? Okay. I looked at these, and here's the two examples I come up with. Abraham. Abraham was fearful. He was worrisome and indecisive. And in Genesis, the 20th chapter, it narrates the story where Abraham, who was immigrating to the region of Gerar, meets Abimelech. And because he is fearful that the king is going to take a liking to Sarah and maybe have him killed so that he can take Sarah as his wife, he tells the king that Sarah is his sister to avoid the conflict, to avoid the problems, because he's fearful, he's worrisome. And so we find that the Lord has to intervene to keep Abimelech from taking Sarah as a wife, because he thinks it's Abraham's sister. That's the one. The second one that I really feel could have been a phlegmatic is the rich young ruler in the New Testament. He come to Jesus and he said, "What must I do to see the kingdom of heaven?" And the Lord says, "You must follow all the commandments." And the rich young ruler looks at him and says, "Hey, I've got it made. I have followed every rule all of my life, even from my youth. I have followed all the rules." And Jesus said, "That's great. Go and sell what you have, give it to the poor, and come follow me." Well, the selfish, stingy little nature that comes up in the phlegmatic rises up, and the rich young ruler walks away saddened because he had much holdings and he did not want to part with those things. So when we think of these things, we want to understand, and next week we're going to really get into the blends of these different, because no one person is any one temperament. You, because of your DNA, because of the makeup of six main contributors to your DNA, your grandparents on both sides and your parents, you are a blend of these things. And I think when we start talking about the blends, you're going to be able to understand really what you really are. I was able to identify myself last week, and identifying yourself is not always a good thing. You see some of the weaknesses that you have to work through. So let's go to number 7 here, slide number 7, the careers of the phlegmatics. Phlegmatics rarely exert themselves with others or push their way into a career. They simply fall into something and they will stay on that course because they don't want conflict, they don't want change. They'll fall into a career and they will stay with that all the days of their life until they finally retire, if you can get them to retire, because they don't like change. Phlegmatics make good team players. So if you have a team environment at work, they are good at being a team member. They communicate in a warm, sincere way, showing their interest in others. They are most productive in careers that allows for routine and service to others. The best jobs for phlegmatic personalities are often found in the positions of customer service, nurse, elementary school teachers. You ever wonder what gives an elementary school teacher the patience to handle kids in first grade and teach them to read and not pull their hair out and all that kind of stuff? Well, they're phlegmatic. Mid-level management that does not require quick decisions. Um, Pharmaceutical salesperson, the person that has the route, that drives the route every week and goes on the same route and able to stop in and see the same people and offer their services. Sales clerks, route salespeople, postal delivery drivers, and office staff workers. Some of the things that I've highlighted here is your administrative secretaries, air traffic controllers. They love that because that's all about the rules. Engineers, school teachers, and architects. They make excellent employees. Those of you that are choleric and have your own businesses and stuff like that, you want to hire the phlegmatics. Why? Because they always do what they're told to do because they're going to follow the rules. And number two, because they want to avoid conflict, they never ask you for a raise. So those are reasons why you want to hire the phlegmatics. They are reluctant leaders. They will not volunteer to lead, but if asked to, they can and will do an adequate job because they will follow the rules. Looking at phlegmatic and partnerships in life, they build a limited number of relationships and they build them slowly. Once they have established a relationship with an individual, they will never let go, regardless of what that individual does or says. Once they become your friend, they will be loyal and dependable and faithful for life. However, if a relationship is broken, they will not go back and try to repair it. They hold a grudge. That's how big of a grudge they hold. They will not go back and try to repair any broken relationship because it's hurt them so deeply. They don't have a wide social network of friends. They just prefer a few close friends, and most of those friends are just family members. They take a while to warm up, as I said. In romantic relationships, the phlegmatic can be affectionate, but like I said, you have to put them on the slow burner and bring them to a simmer because it takes them a while to warm up. They resist sudden changes in their established routine. They're loyal to their mate and family, and they love staying home. They make excellent parents. If you see a parent that never raises their voice to a kid, no matter how rowdy and everything they get, that's probably a phlegmatic parent. They do make excellent parents. On one hand, I want to tell them, why don't you just spank the kid and shut him up so that the rest of us can have some peace. So I hope that in some of these things that we've talked about these last 4 weeks that you've been able to identify maybe your core temperament, and when we start talking about the blends of these temperaments next week, maybe you'll be able to identify yourself more readily and put together those areas. And we're talking about these things, and we talk about the weaknesses, so we know what we need to work on within ourselves. There's none of us perfect. There's none of us that's correct in everything that we do. We all have these weaknesses because we've all been born in sin, shapen in iniquity. We all come short of the glory of God. And if we can learn to identify our weaknesses, then we know what to ask the Holy Spirit to help us correct in our lives so that we can be the type of Christians that God would have us to be. God bless you. And I finished on time today, Lane.
All right, real good, Jesse. Take a break, come back for worship.